All right, then I guess time is around 1, and we're just given a few minutes. So let's just start out nice and easy, and let the last ones join up in the next few minutes. I guess I can introduce today's subject. So thank you all for attending. I appreciate your time here, and I really do hope that you will gain some insights from our webinar today. I sure have had the pleasure of listening in, Oscar, on your stuff on this if insurance case, and I think it's really interesting. So looking very much forward to the conversations of today. So our subject is basically very specific into a scenario that we've been working with, or that you have been driving, Oscar, one of our customers. And I think DORA is such a huge thing. So it's really excellent to give a tangible example on how can we actually meet those expectations and kind of accommodate those regulations. So that's the deep dive, you could say, on one way of looking at DORA from a ServiceNow perspective. We'll also be doing some other stuff on the DORA and the ServiceNow space, but I'll get back to you on that a bit later. So I'm Mikkel, and I'm a sales director here at the Cloud People, and I will be mostly doing the hosting today. I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of different of our customers, mainly in Denmark, but also in other countries. And it's always a pleasure to see how they can gain value from the ServiceNow platform, which I think is a really exciting space. So been in this business for, I guess, probably 10 years or so in the ServiceNow community. So been around, and that does not refrain me from diving into new subjects. It's always exciting that there's something changed as time goes here. So enough about me. Oscar, maybe you could just put a few words on yourself.
Of course. Thank you, Mikkel. So my name is Oscar Hjelmer. I think I will do most of the talking today. I'm currently a solution consultant with the Cloud People, and I've been in IT for around 10 years. Been using ServiceNow for the last 7, and out of those 7, I actually spent 4 years as a ServiceNow customer. Currently, I've been involved with If Insurance for the past year or so, and we are currently working on initiatives surrounding how to be more compliant with the regulations posed by DORA that I will talk a bit more about today. So looking forward to tell you a little bit more about the solution today.
Thanks, Oscar. I think you're quite brave to I guess estimate you'll be doing the mostly talking while you're in the room with the sales guy, right? But
exactly.
Well, I have the notion that you're right there, but let's see. We'll count the words at the end, right? All right, so you found your way into the webinar. That's at least a very good start. The application here is Livestorm, and just to give you a brief introduction, we have 4 tabs down in the right-hand corner. You have people. That's where you can see the other attendees here. It's by first name only, so you have your privacy intact. Then there's the polls, where we'll be pushing in some polls as we go along. It's always nice to understand you guys out there, understand the audience. Please help us out by giving us some response in the polls. That is very much appreciated. So if you're, while we go along and Oscar shares his insights, you are more than welcome to post questions in the questions tab. We will go through them at the end of the webinar. So to make sure we got everything addressed, at least within our means here. If not, we can always return back to you. So you can use the questions tab for that. Or you could use the chat function at the outmost right-hand corner to comment or help each other out, or put in some questions or whatever it is that's on your mind. Feel free there. I'll be monitoring that while Oscar goes, and then I might break in to share some comments from you guys if you want to. So yeah, we're here for you guys. So the more you can guide us, the better. So feel free to chime in. So enough about the platform. Perhaps just a few words. We're the Cloud People. Some of you may know us, some of you may not. I just wanted to give you a real brief overview on who we are as an organization. We are a global ServiceNow elite partner, as is stated in this slide. That means we only do work within the ServiceNow space. We are quite heavily certified in different areas of the ServiceNow platform. We are available in quite a few countries, mostly in Europe, but expanding just bit by bit. 350 certified consultants, and we work with the main verticals, of course, but also due to the numbers here, have experts in all the other aspects of the platform. So we want to make sure that we are full service partner for your ServiceNow needs, right? So enough about that. Let's dive into today's subject. And I guess if you want to win the race of most words, Oscar, then this would be a great time to take us on a journey through what will we gain from attending this webinar today.
Thank you, Mikael. So yes, this is today's agenda. I will give you a brief introduction to DORA and sort of how it applies to this case. I will then try to explain how we can turn challenges like those posed by DORA into actual working solutions. And then I will present the security assessment solution that we have built at If Insurance. So I'll, without further ado, I will jump into it.
Sounds great, Oscar. I'm all in then.
Great. So we start with DORA and what is it and why is it important? So DORA, as it's so nicely abbreviated, stands for Digital Operational Resilience Act. It's quite a mouthful. I've had to say it quite a few times already, so I'm well prepared. But what it is, it's a new regulation that is enacted by the European Union that applies to all financial institutions that operates within the EU. And I'm no expert on this regulation, so I'll try to sort of give my interpretation of it so far. I work in the ServiceNow sphere with solving issues related to this. So if you were waiting for a DORA presentation, you will have to search further on. But I'll tell you a little bit about how this applies or how DORA applies to the case I'm going to talk about today.
Maybe I can add in there, Oscar. Sorry for just breaking in here, but hey, you're the guy with the solution around how could we operationalize this stuff, right? Because one thing is the regulation part. When
exactly.
We enter this into a day-to-day business, how do we make sure stuff happens? How do we make sure we can track it? How do we gain the overview? That's the operational stuff that needs to happen in order for us to be compliant and able to audit and make sure that we get through without too many scars and bruises, right?
Yes.
Thanks, man.
So DORA is a regulation that requires companies in the financial industry to actively and proactively work on strengthening their IT security. And the reason behind why the European Union has decided to create this regulation is mainly because companies today are increasingly dependent on digital services, which makes you vulnerable. We're at a point in time where we're using more digital services than ever before, and that's just going to increase. And so DORA is a way for us to make sure that companies that operate in the very important financial industry that makes sort of our lives go around are working with their IT security and takes it seriously. And so DORA contains a multitude of regulatory requirements on how to do this work. And one of the chapters, chapter 4, is dedicated entirely to the testing of digital operational resilience. And in this chapter, it doesn't say exactly how you are supposed to perform these tests, but rather what requirements there are for what level of various types of security tests your organization needs to conduct on a regular basis. So DORA, as I see it, is both very important. It is a positive thing that the EU has come up with, because it compels these companies to take their IT security serious. But similar to previous regulations, you all remember GDPR, I'm sure. It does impose significant demands on companies. And I kind of shows this image because I don't believe that the responsibles at If Insurance were quite as happy as the person in the image when they learned what requirements were imposed by DORA. But hopefully by now they have realized that it is very important, and at this stage they are better prepared to when it comes to the aspect regarding testing their IT environment ahead of the regulation, because that is coming into effect next year. It's going live in January 2025, which means that by next January you need to be compliant with the regulations. And I wanted to run a poll now to just see, sort of hear what you guys think when it comes to your organizations and the challenges that you see in operationalizing new regulations like DORA. If you see that it's easy for you to do that, or if you have some challenges, or if you feel like it's very challenging, or maybe you don't know. So we'll give a second here to see the votes come in. I can see that it trends towards some challenges. Most of you, it's starting to shift a bit between very challenging and some challenges. And I can say it is quite a challenge in taking a regulatory requirement like this and turning it into a way of working. It's nothing to be underestimated. And that's where sort of we can come in and help you guys in figuring it out to put it into practice. So that's more on the topic that I will talk about today, because today I will talk about security assessments at If Insurance. That refers to the ability for If Insurance to continuously work with identifying and resolving security vulnerabilities in their business applications. But it also provides them the ability to be more compliant with some of the new regulations articles. But before I tell you how and what we did, I'm going to tell you a little bit how we solved or the challenge posed, basically. And so when If Insurance reached out to us, DORA was just one aspect of what they wanted to work around. And I think that is very important to highlight, because it wasn't just about, becoming more compliant with the new regulations, but they also wanted a better and more structured process around their vulnerability and penetration testing. So they had a clearly stated goal that they wanted to improve the way they were working with security assessments. And that is then the workflow of conducting the security tests, including vulnerability and penetration testing of business applications. Something that is usually referred to as ethical hacking. And they were aiming for both a better and improved structure in terms of documenting the results, but also a better way to effectively address any vulnerabilities that they had identified. They also wanted to enhance their overview and the tracking of all the ongoing tests that they were performing. And they were quick to realize that this wasn't something that they could do on their own. They needed a tool to support their requirements. And they believe that a tool would enable them to ensure that they had both a unified and structured approach to the security testing, but also that that approach was adhered to over time. Because adhering to a way of working without a tool over time relies on the people involved in the process. And if the people change or move away from that, it becomes very hard to make sure we do it in the same way we have decided we should do it. And they also believe that by gathering this entire process and all the data surrounding it in one place, they also believe that they could get a better overview of the entire security work. So that is sort of what they approached us with and what they wanted. And the solution was quite an easy choice for them, the ServiceNow platform. The platform was a natural choice for If because it was a place they've already consolidated a lot of related processes. They were used to working with the platform. It also made sense because we already had a lot of relevant data and information that could be reused into this new solution. We had things like the CMDB and the service portal and common organizational data, for just to name a few. And so from there on, when they had sort of decided this is the way we want to go, we could start discussing how can we make sure we can digitize the workflow into a process-oriented application in ServiceNow. And how did we do that? I want to tell you a little bit about how I approach such a challenge, which I believe is a good method of approaching these kinds of challenges and making sure we can operationalize things like complex regulations and the requirements set by them. And I like to start with the process itself, because if we're gonna build something that follows a workflow, we better know that the process is there, that it's defined, and that it's agreed upon. So we started out by mapping out how does the process look like today, and how do we want it to look like tomorrow. So we could identify, is there any uncertainties, areas that need clarifications, details to dive deep into. And what we come up with was this flow you see in the image before you. And we established the process first of all before we decided to move forward. And so the process looks like this, that we begin, of course, by initiating it, a security assessment. We then have the security team conduct penetration and vulnerability testing. And this is done outside of ServiceNow. We're not using ServiceNow for actually conducting the penetration testing. And then we needed a way to document the results, hand them over to the development team responsible for that specific business application or IT system. Then the phase of remediating and mitigating any vulnerabilities that were identified while testing begun. And once that effort was concluded, we could sort of finalize the assessment. And so at that point, we had agreed upon that this is the way we want to work. This is the flow that we want to create a process-driven application for in ServiceNow. And at that point, we decided, okay, now we can actually move on to the next phase, look at detailed needs and specific requirements, because we can see that this is sort of fit for purpose in the ServiceNow platform. And so then we could dive deep into, okay, what are the business needs here? Well, first of all, they wanted the business to be more involved into the security work. And we decided that business needs to request the assessments, and they need to be involved in the workflow as well. We also decided that we need a common space to document the security effort. So the tool sort of needs to support that. There needs to be a place within the tool where we can document any vulnerabilities that were identified in the tests. We wanted to improve the collaboration between the application teams and the security team. And here we realized that the application teams, they are not working in ServiceNow today. So when the security teams wants to hand over the results, they need to do that to where the developers are, who's working with the actual application, who can remediate and mitigate the vulnerabilities. And we wanted to give management a better overview and visibility of the security work. That resulted in sort of an idea that we need to provide a dashboard where you can easily monitor the process, see what high and critical vulnerabilities have been identified, to give them the ability to continuously prioritize the security work alongside everything else that's going on in the organization. And so at this point, we had an idea. We knew what the process should look like, and we had sort of all of the requirements in place. There were obviously more requirements than I've stated here, but these were sort of the major aspects affecting the way we produced the solution. And so let me talk to you a little bit about the solution then. So first of all, we explored possibilities in the platform and compared it to what the licensing model that the customer had. And we concluded that the best solution here was to build our own application on ServiceNow. So we started with building a custom application that could support this process that I've showed you. And that consisted basically of an application with a form that the business could use to initiate the security assessment. Behind that form was the process where the security team receives the requests, prioritizes incoming assessments, and documents the results of the penetration and vulnerability testing. So a place where they can follow this process, basically. And then the second part of the solution is we needed a way to hand over the findings to the development team. And so we realized that an integration with Azure DevOps was required, because here in Azure DevOps is where the developers of the different application team have their daily work. This is where they work with user stories, with bugs, with epics and features. And we realized that we want to incorporate the security work into their daily tool so they can prioritize it together with everything else going on in their shared backlog. Because we believe that instead of trying to force them into working in ServiceNow, we needed to adapt the application and the process to their way of working. And so by sort of combining the workflows in ServiceNow with the workflows in Azure DevOps, we believe that we create the best environment for effectively addressing and remediating vulnerabilities.
But just to clear out, Oscar, that is for if you have an internal development team, or you're kind of having that responsibility regarding producing your own applications, right? But you might as well use the same processual steps in terms of handling external applications coming from the outside. Am I right?
Exactly. We could add a third square or circle here with another tool to provide it to an outsourced part of the development effort. But yeah, so once they have then received the tasks in Azure DevOps, we they could mark them as complete, and then we'd receive that back to ServiceNow. So we use ServiceNow as a central point for the entire process to manage it and track what's going on. And we could do that even though we put part of the process in another system. And since all the data was gathered then in ServiceNow, we were able to create a dashboard where management could monitor the process, see what had been tested, and sort of how the remediation progress was working. So this gave them the ability to use that information to continuously prioritize the security work and remediation and mitigation effort. I'll go a little bit deeper into the solution so you sort of can see it more than just a highlight. So we'll start a little bit with the interfaces we chose for the application, and we begun with just using a normal record producer. And as if you guys are familiar with ServiceNow, this is nothing fancy. You use it all the time, but I think it's something that shouldn't be underestimated, because we could then put this form on the service portal and make it available there. And the service portal is a very well established place within the company. And so it is important that the business knows how to find and trigger this process, because otherwise we won't sort of do any of the critical testing that we need to do. And once they've submitted the form, we built an interface within ServiceNow where the security team could receive, evaluate, and prioritize the work based on risk, and then document the findings. And the screenshot here, you see it contains demo data. This is nothing that is based on an actual test, but to give you an idea of the way we could provide an interface with documenting the findings. So they could, within the scope of a test, they could list whatever findings they had from the penetration and vulnerability tests. They could set whatever the severity of the finding was in order for us to later prioritize that in the appropriate manner. We could follow the progress of remediating and mitigating each single finding, and we could potentially set a deadline if we wanted to clarify this needs to be completed at a specific date, because usually due to some sort of criticality or severity level. And then moving on to the Azure DevOps integration. That for us didn't actually pose a huge challenge, because as I state here, ServiceNow and Microsoft, they play nice. And what I mean with that is that both of these huge companies, they make it easy to integrate with each other. So if you are in an organization that use both of these tools, there shouldn't be a huge challenge for you to provide whatever tool your organization needs in a way of working by just integrating the tools with each other. In this case, we actually opted for a custom integration because it better fit the way we had deployed our Azure DevOps implementation, and the way we wanted to sort of connect the workflows together. And it works in a way that when these findings are documented, we create them as user stories and put them in the application team's backlog in Azure DevOps. So they sort of pop up there with a preset priority based on the severity level of the finding. And so that gave us the ability, or the security team, the ability to very easily transfer their findings to the application team and sort of give them guidance on how to resolve it, or what the issue was, and what how critical it is to actually remediate this. And this gives them the ability, then the application team, to swiftly begin the work with fixing any issues that was identified. And so when then they have implemented a solution that would mitigate or remediate the finding, they mark the user story as complete according to the way working in Azure DevOps, and then a signal will be sent back to ServiceNow indicating that this vulnerability has in fact been addressed and resolved, which allows us then to keep all the data in one place. And that provides us with the ability to give management this nice and clear overview of what the hell is going on. So they were given a dashboard where they can monitor just about anything in the process, so they can easily identify where are our high and critical vulnerabilities. They get a detailed overview of the mitigation and remediation process per business application, and sort of a clear overview of how the security assessment process is working. What tests are ongoing, what stage of remediation are they in, and they could set deadlines from here on completing work. And I'll dive a little bit deeper into this dashboard because I think it's quite interesting. So this, what you're seeing is, or the big part on the top right corner here is something we actually made a customized designed or custom designed widget for. It's not something that ServiceNow provides out of the box, but rather ServiceNow actually offers flexibility that allows us to build an interface that provides management the best way of sort of consuming the information we want them to consume. So in this space, you can see this is also, again, demo data, but they could see which applications have been tested. By hovering over this little circle, they could see what severity of findings had been identified, and the progress of remediating each one of them. So in this example, they could see that 2 out of 3 critical vulnerabilities were remediated, but there's one left that needs to be handled. And they could also see if there was a deadline set up and whether or not that deadline had been passed by the color coding red or green.
And I guess, Oscar, for reporting purposes, like in an audit or to kind of do a yearly assessment of whether we are compliant towards DORA requirements or the subset of it, this stuff is obviously also very good to have at hand, right?
Exactly. And as per everything else, we could produce reports on this data as well. So this is more actionable data in a dashboard, but also we provide additional reporting as well to be compliant. But I really think it's good to highlight that we did actually manage to get sort of everything in one view. I think that's challenging in some in a lot of cases, and that is the ability sort of that ServiceNow provides us with. So that's basically what I wanted to present when it comes to the solution. And I also want to talk a little bit about what did this then give If Insurance, and what are some takeaways I want to provide you with from this presentation. So first of all, tracking. We were able to establish mechanisms for keeping track of the continuous security effort. And we sort of provided one single source of truth for the progress of security testing. We also improved the practice of the process of identifying and remediating vulnerabilities in critical business systems. We made the process more structured, and we made sure it did have a clear adherence over time. So back to what I talked about previously or in the beginning was that a tool would provide them with this ability because we had established a structured way of following this process over time. And last but not least, management, I believe, is very happy with the way we have enhanced the visibility of the security effort, because they have been given a comprehensive overview of all the tested applications and the ongoing security work. And sort of by doing that, we have fulfilled some of the requirements set forth by the EU regulation. So they're just a little bit more compliant with DORA. And last, I want to talk a little bit what I want to leave you with, some key takeaways. Well, I want to highlight that leveraging existing IT solutions, such as the ServiceNow platform, makes digital transitions a lot easier. So ServiceNow, again, it is a great tool because it provides us with just enough flexibility, which gives us the ability to sort of tailor solutions to what works best for the customer. And in this case, we were able to establish an effective and structured approach to conducting ethical hacking of business applications. So I think that's pretty amazing. And we could do this with using existing capabilities without the need to invest in any expensive or niche solution. And so what I want to leave you with is that ServiceNow is always something that should be considered while facing challenges like DORA. So thank you for listening in to what I had to say, and I'll hand it back to you, Mikael.
Excellent and really interesting, Oscar. We actually had a question, and Marta, thank you very much for that question. That is an excellent question, and it sort of leads me to the next kind of thing in this webinar. If I can get you to hang on just a few minutes. So we are currently working on a session, kind of expanding on the DORA as a subject, because as this was a pinpoint into one way of approaching a DORA requirement with a single solution, there's obviously many aspects of DORA, as you touched on, Marta. So you are referring to ICT, incident classification and assessment, and what kind of modules there's available in ServiceNow. And the short answer is yes, there is a recommendation from ServiceNow on how to approve that. What we would really like to do is basically take you through the paces of the different built-in modules of ServiceNow and explain how can that map towards the DORA requirements. So that would be the broader view of DORA. So I would like to have your opinion on this, on the poll. So if you're interested in listening into such a session, please let us know via the poll, because then we can reach out to you once it's ready to go, and we can dive into the more detailed part of what kind of products, spaces in ServiceNow is actually meant to support different aspects of the DORA requirements. And with regards to a particular question, I don't know, Oscar, if you have a comment there.
Yeah, I could comment. Of course, no, this solution doesn't in fact cover everything, not at all, because DORA is a very huge regulation. It does allow us to fit this solution into the rest of the solutions we intend to build or configure or reuse on the ServiceNow platform to be more compliant with the DORA regulation.
But I would highly recommend you to sign up for the next session, because I will make sure that we take you through also this question. I am not able to give you the exact pinpoint right now. I'll reach out to you, Marta, afterwards and give you some insights there. But the intention of the next session is actually to give that overview. Then we will not go into deep dive. We will just be on the you could say the overarching intentions of the ServiceNow platform on how to provide DORA compliance and leverage the different components there. So I hope that is, I know it's not a full answer, but it's at least stay tuned, and we will provide some insights I'm sure will be insightful to you as well regarding that questions. And this leads us to, if there's anyone else that has a question, feel free to chime in. Right now we'll just hang on a few seconds. And if not, then Thank you very much for attending this webinar. We really do hope that you gained something from it, and thank you, Oscar, for sharing those thoughts and your work there. You're more than welcome to check out our webpage as well for the other upcoming events.